Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez. This is Interviews from Quito, the program where we explore the biggest challenges facing this country and the region. In today's program, we look at the controversial case of Ola Bini. After 70 days arrested in Ecuador, accused of compromising computer systems, he is finally free. But his legal situation is still under debate. Is he a hacker? Has he jeopardized the Ecuadorian state's security? Or is he really an activist for online privacy? And most important, was this a persecution for being too close in an inconvenient moment to Wikileaks founder Julian Assange? To discuss that, we have Ivonne Tellez, a specialist in international law. But first, let's take a look at this video.
Swedish programmer Ola Bini has appeared before the Ecuadorian prosecutor's office as part of the alternative measures given by Ecuador's provincial court of Pichincha. With 2 votes to 1 in favor, an Ecuadorian court accepted an habeas corpus request for Bini and ordered his immediate release after spending over 70 days in detention without formal charges. He is accused of allegedly carrying out a cyber attack on the integrity of computer systems in Ecuador. Which red flags does this case raise in regards to the efficiency, transparency, and integrity of the Ecuadorian legal system? Follow our analysis.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, Ivonne, for being with us. So let's begin with the latest case. We have Ola Bini. What is his legal situation, what he went through? Is he really a hacker that wanted to intervene in computer systems in Ecuador, or is he really a political prisoner? Was he really a political prisoner?
Okay, thank you, Carla, for having me here. Being careful not to get into some judicial or legal issues that I can definitely not talk about because I'm not certain about, and that regarding the fact if he is or if he has some merits to be accused. What we have seen so far is that definitely all the legal processes that should have been observed regarding, for example, how he was apprehended, how he was imprisoned, and all the procedures that followed that situation have not fulfilled the expectations or the legal requirements that should be fulfilled. In that sense, that leaves a great space for us to think that probably he is a political prisoner because as so far has been seen, there are no real facts about how, when, or what did he committed a crime. So we have some probably what we have seen are some proofs, but just not real facts. So we are still on the basis of, okay, how, when, what did he commit?
So if there was no evidence to provide against him of actually doing something illegal against the state of Ecuador, why was he in prison? Was that legal and fair?
It seems to be unfair. So far, it seems to be unfair. Let's begin from the first point. He's a legal resident here in Ecuador. He's been working. He has payment roles. I mean, he has some things that show that he has a legal residence here and that he has been legally working in in technology, right? In security and technology and on all this digital world. It seems that the fact that he's a friend of Julian Assange definitely leads Ecuador to think that he has a bond with Wikileaks or this organization, but this seems to be just assumptions. There, as far as his attorney, his lawyer, his defendant has shown, there has no been real evidence, there hasn't been shown real evidence of how he has committed this crime. So, and this happens also on the same day when Julian Assange is released from the embassy of Ecuador in the UK, and the first basis for his imprisonment was that he has visited several times the embassy, so he visited several times Julian Assange, that he has been out of the country for this 4 years several times, so that will be a migration report and the financial report that he has. But so far as the lawyer has, the defendants has shown, all this tentative evidence has been like outruled, because everything seems to make sense and everything seems to be in order. The fact that he's working with technology and the fact that he's friends with Julian Assange is what makes him a principal suspect of this crime. So what will be the legality in that is if there is no evidence, if there are no facts. So no, yes, definitely that leads us to think that he is being politically well searched.
Or persecuted.
Or prosecuted, yes.
At some point, yeah. But you were referencing to some of the inconsistencies during his case. Can we go through a couple of them? I think one of the most important ones, and that Ola Bini consistently referred to, was the fact that he was arrested and he wasn't read his charges, his rights in his language, that he couldn't understand what's going on.
There's something that's called due process, and that's a basic principle of justice. There are some constitutional rights, and not only constitutional regarding Ecuador, but international rights and international principles. One of them is due process, and due process has to do with, okay, if I am apprehended by the security forces of a country, well, I do have the right to be read why I am being, why am I being imprisoned, why am I being retained, what are my rights. And if I don't speak the language, definitely I need to be read, I need my rights to be read on my mother tongue. That's one of the other things. And why am I being processed? There are also some international protocols that were violated in this case, and that is related to when a host state is prosecuting a foreigner. It has to, the host state has to notify the embassy or notify the government of which the person is national of about this process. That was violated too, because Ecuador didn't notify when it was supposed to do it. So the absence of observance of the process, this probable violation of this legal security, also the violation of the presumption of innocence. That's a very important point, because he was called a Wikileaks official member. So he was, in a way, charged with crimes or with situations, but he didn't know about that. Those are violations of this due process.
And he was never charged, officially charged.
And he was never officially charged.
I know about the case.
And that, for example, led to some other thing, and that is regarding his, the denial of bail that he has. So if we see that, and if we analyze this with details, we are going to see that there is a lot of political influence, seems to be a lot of political influence in this case, because, for example, when the judge that was supposed to, or that decided about this bail, the judge's considerations were, okay, there's no real charge for this. And if there's no real charge, and then we cannot put a price, we cannot estimate the damage of this. So further, due to this, I cannot put a price, and I cannot estimate to fix a bail amount. So in this case, this just proves that there has not been an official charge and an initial charge from the beginning.
So why was he kept for so long, almost 70 days? He kept proposing habeas corpus, the bail process. Why wasn't this just a simple case of this person has not been charged, he should be released? Is it a matter of the Ecuadorian courts being slow at this process?
Well, he was arrested on the 12th of April, and he was arrested or put under preventive prison on the 13th of April. What does this mean? The crime that he is being charged of, that will be a way to say it, is a crime that allows for preventive prison. So that's probably the judicial part of this that allowed him to be kept for such a long time. The problem here, and that is why the habeas corpus was a success, is because during this time and during the time of his apprehension, when he was arrested and all this detention time, the several rights were continuously violated. Regarding, for example, from the beginning, what we said, he wasn't read his rights. There was another thing. He wasn't allowed to talk to a lawyer for a long period of time, and that was supposed to be done immediately. So at the end, what happened with the habeas corpus is it was decided that definitely there had been some violations in this due process, and that regarding to the Constitution and how it's stated as a constitutional right led to the concession of the habeas corpus, because that leads to an illegal and illegitimate detention.
So what does that message what message does that give out to the people of Ecuador or anyone living in Ecuador, that if you are wrongly imprisoned, that you don't have any charges against you, you have to overcome several violations to your rights throughout the process? It may take you longer than it did Ola Bini, but you have to follow through all of them and just wait, because after that a court will say, okay, you were all your rights were violated and now we can let you go. Now we're sorry, now you can go.
It's something that we should be very concerned about, because that questions the system of justice and the rule of law. If we go to the principles of law, everyone is equal before the law, everyone has the same rights, and the due process is a basic thing that will lead to the failure of the system if the victim or the person that is being charged of crimes proves that the due process was violated. And that will happen in the domestic law, and that will happen internationally. That will always be a success. So how come, in this case, the country with a deep knowledge about that, and regarding the fact that this is a case that is, what is that? That is on the eye of the hurricane, because it has a direct link with Julian Assange's case. So very important for the media. So it will be very published along, not only in Ecuador but along the world. How come the system of justice is, it seems to be like permeated from the executive, because it definitely has some touches of political interventions. It seems to be like that, because it's very hard to sustain that he has been a criminal when after almost 90 days, because it's going to be almost 90 days, there has no been real evidence of what he has done. And all the possible proofs that he has against have been, at least in this initial state, have been overruled.
And he's not the only person, Ola Bini, to be involved in dealing with the judicial system in Ecuador. We have, at the moment and for the past years, the whole issue of Odebrecht, the Lavallato operation. It has affected the entire region and several other countries from beyond our borders. How does that affect people that are, at the moment, being accused of receiving bribes, not ever produced any evidence? For example, we have one of the main cases is Jorge Glass, Vice President of Ecuador, who is still in jail, waiting for proofs that he had received any payment from a company in Brazil.
Well, not going into the fine detail, because every case has, of course, different facts, definitely. But that questions the judicial system always. One of the main concerns, and that has been historically approached, is how the judicial system and the justice system is independent from the executive, from the power, from who's in power. So we are always seeing in Latin America, we're always going through this, because sometimes it seems that the judicial systems work dependent upon who's in power, who's in charge. So how can we prove that the system, or how can we trust that the system is impartial, and that is equal, and that is holding and respecting everyone's rights? That's the questions that we have, because we see that some things are managed in a way and some things are managed in other ways. And I think one of the main tasks of the judicial system here is to prove itself to be a question of trust, and to gain confidence before the citizenships, and it doesn't have. It doesn't have, because as far as we can see with all the different cases, is that everyone is treated differently. In the case of Ola Bini, there's something that he holds. He has the resources, the financial resources, to at least get a proper defense upon his, well, in this trial. Not trial, but in this preliminary investigation. But what happens to other people that do not have the access to the financial resources to do it? So that leaves us a big question: what is happening with the impartiality of the judicial system?
And even a bigger question: what can a person do, whether it's his innocence or not, to defend himself freely and fairly?
And fairly, yeah. Regarding to your question, what can one can do? I mean, if we're talking about someone that has resources, financial resources, independent of his profession or his work, he or she's or hers, but how can we trust a system that seems to be partial and seems to have different positions? And how can we trust a system? That is a big question for me. How can we trust a system that violates the due process? That's the initial stage of any proper investigation in any part, in every country of the world. So how can we trust a system that seems to be violating this? How can be a person denied of knowing his or her rights? That's a basic thing that a proper system of justice should have. So if we see this small omissions, just to call them small, in these small details, how can we, or what can we expect from the decision?
So it seems that, for example, in Ecuador, at least with the case of Ola Bini and other people that are persecuted or accused of doing something wrong, an illegal thing, it seems like it's just an idea that we think that there might be political persecution, there might be a political hand there. Mm-hmm. But in some cases, for example, in Brazil, for Lula da Silva, the former president, he's still in jail, there has been evidence that the prosecutors, that the judges wanted to keep him in jail, that wanted to create a case against him, even though they didn't have evidence. So do you think that should change his case, his legal situation?
It should, but what I think and what I'm concerned about is that, as you said, the judicial system, the prosecutors created a case for him. They created it. That seems to be a fiction, because evidence is now proven that wrong. So I think the resources that in this case Lula has should be international resources, because I cannot see how a biased judicial system can offer proper justice and can administrate proper justice for everyone. In this case, at least while the power, the same system prevails, I cannot see a light for him, because there's a case created. I mean, there has been proper evidence that everything was in a way invented. That's really, really
disturbing.
Disturbing. Yes, it is. But how can he access to the same system of justice to ask for something different if it's the same. It is the prevailing system. So probably his way out could be international system, and not under the case, because of course the criminal system is independent and it depends upon every country, each country, but regarding his rights, his human rights, that will be a way out for him.
Now, if we also look at the other side of the argument, we have prosecutors and judges saying that these people, whether it be someone from Ecuador, from Brazil, or different countries in the world, have accepted bribes from different companies. And we use the example of Odebrecht because it's the biggest one and the one that continues to bring out names. Just a couple of days ago, it was still in Peru. Names were coming out of people that had allegedly received bribes. But this system of a company or a large multinational coming out and saying, hey, we know that we gave money to this person, this company, this organization, but Odebrecht has not been charged for anything. So, and they keep saying that we've given money to someone, we don't have evidence, but we gave this, we talked to this person. They are very precise on who they talk about and who they don't talk about. Yes. So what are your thoughts on this type of procedure to acquire justice?
Wow. That's a big issue, because Odebrecht, from my standpoint, is protected. It's being protected around the different countries, basically in Latin America. As you said, Odebrecht decides who it talks about, who is going to be the next person being said that has received some bribes or things. So the power remains on the company, and the company is giving money to everyone, and I mean not to everyone, to every state. So why is every state? Because each state is behaving differently, but in a way they are protecting it, because we cannot see, we don't see Odebrecht being prosecuted about anything. They are just, okay, we came out with this light, and probably that happened. I don't think that hasn't happened, but how it is handled and how the company remains working, remains paying for these things. So it is paying some compensations, big amount of money being paid as compensations, but that's it.
And then there's nothing
there's
no
individual
can do.
Responsibility. So I'm just paying for my responsibility, but there is no individual responsibility, and I am deciding who I am talking about. And then the justice turns his eyes towards the person that Odebrecht is pointing out. So what is the transparency of this process?
And it leaves people on the blind. We can defend ourselves. We have this huge company accusing us.
Yes.
It's a very disturbing
I mean, I think it's the power of the capital in this case.
The power of the capital. Unfortunately, the power of the capital having a lot of power over the judicial system.
Over control.
As well. Unfortunately, Yvonne, we are running out of time, but thank you very much for your time and for explaining to us all the legal aspects that sometimes can be a bit complicated to understand, and to put it in context as well.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Yvonne. So we've been talking to Ivonne Tellez, she's a specialist in international law, on how the case of Ola Bini affects international law and what can be done to prevent further cases and to respect the rule of law. Thank you for watching. This is Interviews from Quito. I'm Carla Gonzalez.